Hey, what's up? Do you want to learn how to do embedded Swift? In this demo, I am showcasing the LED smart light. This is a Swift Matter example. So this is now connected to my HomeKit so I can control the color of this LED directly in the app. Hey, this is Paul Solt from Super Easy Apps. Let's dive into embedded Swift programming and learn how you can troubleshoot different problems that you're going to run into if you try to follow Apple's embedded guides. So I'm going to just change the color. When we do that, we'll see that the color is going to shift around. I can make this brighter and it will get brighter. Let's just make it a little bit brighter. And we should be seeing those changes. It's a little hard to hold this all together. I'm going to just hold it like this so that you can sort of see what I'm interacting with. And I should be able to make this red. We see that it goes red. I don't know if I make it green, does it like disappear and go into the background? I'm not sure if that's going to create like a hole in my iPhone with this green screen. But regardless, let's change it back to like a bluish, purplish color. And then hit done. And so now we have a color. Now that's going to be really bright. Like it doesn't look super bright, but like this is like blinding and super annoying to look at. So if I'm going to play around with this on my desk, I'll probably set it down to like 10% so it looks like it's super dim. But that at least lets me see that it's on or off. If I tap this, I should be able to... where's the off button? I have to drag it all the way down to turn it off. Okay. I didn't expect that. I expected just to like be able to do something to turn it off. But you can sort of see I can turn it off, I can turn it on, and I can change the colors. So it's all through the Matter APIs. I'm going to set it back down. So how do we get started with this? And what do you do? One of the biggest challenges that I have had is that it's really complicated, number one. And number two, there's a lot of errors. I don't exactly know what I'm doing. I know a little bit more after struggling with this for 2 days. But I want to share some of those insights with you. So let's dive into how to get started. So if you want to get started with this, this is the tutorial that you need to get started with. And there is I think these are both the same thing. So I would start here. I'm going to have links also to code fails to compile. This was stopping me from getting any progress. So if you can figure out this will help you get past that. People talked about removing the build folder. I'm going to talk about those steps. I'm not exactly sure which step fixes it. And then I had another issue where this just wasn't working either. And I think I had to reset the device because I had previously added it. Then I like removed it and I wasn't able to re-add it. So I don't know exactly how Matter devices work, but I'm assuming I needed a way to like factory reset it. So let's talk about those steps. I've got a little guide that we're going to sort of go off of and make it a little bit bigger. And we're going to start... I should just probably extract this to a separate file. We're going to start here. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is set up your ZSH file after all of this setup. And let's dive into the setup first. This will take more time than they specify. So it's probably going to take 45 minutes to do this setup process, especially if you don't have Xcode. Getting the nightly, they want you to go to the snapshots, download page, and then down here, what you're looking for are the trunk main, and then Xcode if you're on Mac, and it's this universal one. So that's where you need to start out. And then from there, that's going to install a development snapshot with some kind of date or identifier. And that's going to be hopefully in your Toolchains. Install it for all users. So that's what I did. And then we want to get this. Now, this is where I think the guide could be cleaned up a little bit. We need to see what toolchain you have. And in this case, I've installed it as a root. So if I type ls library developer, and then we probably need to move this over to the side here. I'm going to rearrange stuff a little bit. Let's bring my guide back down over here. It's the only thing that's going to make sense. Make this a little smaller. Okay, so we're going to go into our tool chains, and this is going to list them. Now, I think this looks like a symlink, so you could potentially link this if you need to. I'm not sure if we have to just yet. But if we want to be explicit and you have multiple Swift keychains, tool chains, this is the one that I'm running. So this is from, that is July 15th. These latest ones are not stable. They are from like the main line, but they have the Swift embedded stuff in them. So that's what you're going to need to get started with all of this. So I think Oleg had a command where he just put this all together, which was super helpful. We need to set the tool chain, and to do that, you could do something like this. So right now, if I do echo tool chains, it's already there. So that is my current tool chain, and that is like searching into these files. If you're going to run this locally, just for this session, you could just paste in this command, and that would set the tool chain so that if you were to echo the tool chain, you should see a value. Now, with this set, you can sort of see how this works is you can manually override this for a command. So we could just say toolchains equals XYZ Swift version, and that might silently fail, or it might give us something. It might drop back to the latest. I'm not exactly sure. And then if we were to, I think Oleg talked about that, it doesn't error out on you. If we were actually to set this to my current tool chain, and we copy this here and paste that identifier, press enter, we should get something different. I do have Swift 6 installed, but man, that takes way longer than I thought it would take to actually do this. Okay. So here you can see the difference between the Swift version here. And if I were to just do Swift version, what are we going to see? Oh, that's because I'm already overriding it in my code. So that's already in my ZSH file. Okay, so that's how we can sort of play around with testing it. The command that you're going to want to add then to your ZSH file is going to be this, and I've just put that right here. So we're going to see if this works. And then to reload it once you add it to your ZSH file, so to open it, I typically use TextMate, but you could just open it with .zshrc. That's going to be the file that you want to edit. That'll open up. You'll paste in this export command right here. Now, once you save that file, you are going to run source and then give it that path to that zshrc. If you didn't have this file, you'd have to create a new file with this name. So you could touch zshrc, and that would give you a starting point to edit. So if I did that, that would create the file, and then we could open it. You're going to see that it's not going to do anything if we already have the file. We save it, and then we run source zshrc. Okay, so those commands are super helpful, and I'll just copy all of these that we're doing here just so I have some notes. Once we have that, if I were to type Swift version, that toolchain parameter is already set, so the Swift command line is going to be hopefully picking that up, and that should be this top of tree version that I installed locally as a tool chain. Once we have that, we need to set up the IDF environment. And so I think I've got two files that are modifying the same file, so we don't really want to do that. I did add an alias to get Is that down in my alias section? Oh, I thought I added it. Maybe I didn't. I looked at it. Okay, we're not going to worry about that just yet. To set up the environment, once you've installed all this stuff, so you're going to go through and install. This is going to take a long time because there's multiple gigabytes that need to be downloaded. So you're going to install all this stuff, and then you're going to run at the very end. You're going to make sure Toolchains is set, because otherwise bad things are going to happen. So just make sure that this is set. You want to test it. And then you're going to run the period ~esp, assuming you installed it to the same location that they recommended you install it, export.sh. So this will set up your shell, and you might have to do this each time you do this to set up all the path variables. And I'm going to try taking out I had Toolchains in here. So I took that out, so it's not going to be in here. We're going to see if this works without that, because then that will help me isolate like what was actually working. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up the matter stuff. So that's just going to set up a matter path variable that we're going to need. So without these two steps, we're going to have some issues. So those two steps are really important, along with making sure that you're using the right toolchain. Okay. The other thing that I have found is sometimes I get into a bad state, and so there's a command that will clean the stuff. So we're going to use idf.py to build. And I don't actually have anything checked out here. Right. Which means we need to grab that code. So let's get started with the smart LED. So I'm just going to do a fresh install. So we're just going to do a git clone here. I'm going to get rid of that starting. That's going to extract everything. Then we're going to go into the smart light folder. And then one of the things to keep in mind, so there is a setup for Linux Docker that's only if you want to run this on a Linux environment. You can run this without doing that setup. So just do the Mac OS and then come to Smart Light and LED Blink. Once we're in the Docker, we are going to, sorry, not the Docker. Once we're in this folder, which I'm in, we are going to set the target, build, and then flash. So this can take a little bit of time. If you're having issues and you want to start over from scratch, I would recommend IDF py clean as a fresh starting point. So there's nothing to clean here because there's no build directory. Great, because this is a fresh install. And then we're going to do idf.py set target. And here you're going to give it the microcontroller that you're using. So I'm using the ESP32.6C. This is a SmartThings Plus with Matter support. So that's what this looks like. You may have a different board, and instructions are going to potentially be a little bit different on which number you choose here. So you're going to pick one of those. I'm going to go ahead and set that target. That's going to build some things. It's going to get some stuff ready. I don't know if it's creating like a emulator or if it's just the build environment. I'm not exactly sure what all of this does. But it's going to get everything set up for working with the hardware that I have in front of me. So once we do that, took 21 seconds, we are going to build it. So idf.py build. And this is where I was having build issues. And I think it was because the toolchain wasn't set up properly, or I was doing it in a new shell and I hadn't configured something proper. But we'll find out, because this was hard to debug and hard to understand. So we're going to see some warnings from some code files. Some of them you just have to ignore. And that's like the difficulty in doing this the first time, is understanding what things am I seeing like actually matter. Do these errors matter, or are these just compiler warnings that I can just safely ignore? So it created the ESP6 C6 image, which is great. So that's a good starting point. And now it's doing some more work. Okay, we're going to wait for this. So if you're having any issues, take a look at the different pull requests, or sorry, open issues. There's been some tips in here that have been super useful, and the Swift development team at Apple has been helping debug some stuff. Okay, interesting stuff. Okay, so that seemed to work. So we've successfully built, which I was struggling with before, with the issue. And then we're going to do monitor. And the other thing to keep in mind is you're going to do control plus the bracket. This is going to be to exit monitor. So next what we want to do is idf.py/monitor. And this will install it on the chip. So right now it's writing to the microcontroller. And then it should be reinstalling the software momentarily. So now it's booting up and we're seeing the debug logs. And we're seeing, I think, Matter. We're seeing stuff related to Matter and networking. So at this point, I should still be able to turn on this light. So I hit some of these buttons. I asked for a light level of 60%, so that gave it a level control of 153. If I move this down, you'll see there's a bunch of output and it goes down to 64. Oh, you know what? I'm holding this up like it's actually working. It's totally not working. But at least it's not crashing. So this is the other step that I forgot. So let's exit the monitor right now. We can always go back to the monitor and reconnect and see what's going on. But we're going to have to flash it again with a new build. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hopefully open up code with this folder. I don't know if that's going to work. I'm going to try it. So I just installed the command line tools for VS Code. Once this loads, it has to think a little bit. We've got the smart light. We're going to be in the main folder. Man, this is slow. And then in LED, what I want you to do okay, is it going to let me code now? Don't need all this extra logic. Okay, so we're going to find the initializer, which is right here. And then in here, this config, you're going to want to maybe print out the config. I think this works. I know certain things in print don't seem to print. But if we're going to print, it should GPIO. And then I'm just going to manually set this config.gpio equal to 23. I think it's defaulting. This is Swift code. Default may be 8. So we're going to save this. We're going to see if this .gpio, we'll just print this out. So this is what your initializer should look like. And then we're going to go through that build process. So we're going to use idf.py. We're going to type build, and then we're going to do all together. So then it's going to be flash and then monitor and see what happens. You can see this is my serial port that I'm on. So I installed a driver. I don't know if we need to do that, but I wasn't getting that serial port until I installed the driver. So let's find out what's happening here. Okay, light is now on. I just hit the light to do something. And let's see if I can show both. All right, so I'm going to interact. This is weird. I'm going to interact with this. I don't know how to hold this so you can see it. So here I can choose a different color, and it should be changing as I move my cursor around. Some of these colors it looks like it can't do, or the UI just doesn't like me. Bunch of swatches here. So that's playing with the color. Let's go back to a bluish color. And then let's play with the brightness. So this is maximum brightness. You can see that it's getting a little bloom effect with my camera and the surrounding stuff. Getting some colors. And then turning it down to like 10 or 12%. Okay, so that's working great. So now you know how to sort of debug that if it is... So this is how you can customize your LED GPIO pin. The other thing, if you add this and you're having issues with the device, let's try and remove it and see if we can go through this reset up process. So if I want to reactivate this device, I'm going to remove this accessory. We're going to cross our fingers on this part. This may or may not work. That's going to break things here. And then if I want to initialize this device, I can't just build and flash it anymore. I think I have to do a erase flash. So we're going to type erase flash. And that's going to do a bunch of stuff. And then we'll reconnect. So to reconnect, we're just going to do a build flash monitor. Okay, so that's going to be our steps. And we're going to see if this works. Whoops, reflashed it again. Okay. So it's going to install it again. And we're going to see if we can do the HomeKit setup, because before I wasn't able to re-add it without doing this step. So if you're having issues connecting on HomeKit, we're going to go into Add Accessory. We're going to tap on More Options so we can see this has now reset. There's no LED on. If I tap More Options, it's a very small button. It's really important that you see this Matter accessory on the nearby. I had previously added it, and so it was showing up in this section, Other Matter Accessories. And that's like the old light that I had just removed, but it's no longer relevant because I flashed it or I did something to it and it wasn't connectable. So now I'm going to tap on this new home icon that says Matter Accessory. That's the one that we want to connect to. The code that this defaults to right now is 2020 2021. We hit continue. And that's from the install guide from Apple, which is also in the setup guide from, I think, IDF for the ESP32. And then from here, we're going to add anyway as an uncertified accessory because we're making a new one. And it's sort of a prototyping stage. It's going to add that to the home. And then hopefully it will add it so that you can interact with it. Now I made a new location. You can create new rooms at the very bottom. I've got my office here. I'm going to hit continue. And then we're just going to call this ESP32 LED. Get rid of that extra space, hit continue. Then no automations. Then we hit done. And now we should see that light. So if I bring it back up, and if it wasn't working, we're going to see if we can turn it on. Turn it on. We can control the brightness. We can dim it. We can make this a bluish light. And bring this back down to like 12%. Cool. So now you know how to troubleshoot this LED. We've been able to do all the build configuration if you had the GPIO stuff messed up. Hopefully this helps you. I was having like kernel panics or whatever you want to call them when it was set to the wrong one on the LED blink demo. So maybe this helps you get past that by setting the proper channel. It might be setting the wrong thing. It would also panic if I made this a really high number above 31. It would just reset if I tried to write to it. So, hope this was helpful. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you want to learn more about ESP stuff, comment down below. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm hoping that I can do a demo with, I want to control a grid or a strip of LEDs. So that's kind of like next on my to-do list. I'm waiting for some of those components to come in so that I can play with them and then do another tutorial. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video about Swift or embedded Swift. Have a great one.